Hi there, David here from daviddumaisaudio.com, and in this video, I would like to create a gunshot tail sound effect from scratch using samples that you probably already own in your own personal library. So this is going to be like a distant gunshot, like something you would hear if you were out in an open field or in a big area. So that kind of distant gunshot sound, that's what we're going to create in this video. And like I said, all within samples that you already have. I'm going to be using things like kicks, some sci-fi gunshots, and some impact sounds. So yeah, so the whole idea behind this is that you can create these sounds without having to go and create your own gunshot sound effect, that you can use what you have, and then hopefully by the end of this video, you'll see how you can hopefully make it a bit more realistic to fit the whatever situation or environment that you might be trying to place the sounds in. Like I said before, if you're new here, my name is David, and I like to create sound effects. And if you also like to create sound effects, I have a little gift for you. It is my 10 tips for creating game-worthy sound effects. It's a little guide that I put together of 10 different tips that you can use to become a better sound designer to help you create better sound effects. So I'll put the link in the description below. It'll be absolutely free, so you can grab that if you're interested. All right, let's get into our project. All right, so here we are inside my project. And for this specific tutorial, I didn't really have any kind of environment in mind other than like what I said before, that we have some sort of vast landscape or a big field, or maybe you're in the mountains or something like that, and you have this big reverberant sound of a gunshot. And that's what I'm trying to create. So why don't we actually listen to what I created here, and then I'll go through how I created it. So first thing I'll do is I'll actually play it in context with like the actual gunshot, so we actually hear it in context, and then I'll hear just the sound of the gunshot tail by itself, and then we'll go from scratch and see how I created it. So here is the sound. Okay, so the tail sound is what we're working on today, and this is it right here. It sounds like this. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I created this one by itself, and then how you can create your own. So let's go through this. So I'm going to take everything off, all of the plugins that I have on here, taking everything off. And so what I did is I started off with Reactor. And what I did is I just imported a whole bunch of different kick sounds that I had in here. I have also some gunshot sounds that I had created from a previous sound pack that I created. Some other gunshot sounds that I have here, and that's pretty much it. So a lot of gunshots, a lot of kicks. You could probably like put in here like impacts, anything that's like hard hitting, to mimic that like a gunshot being fired. So this is the sound I have. And it doesn't really sound like anything, and it doesn't really need to right now, because what we're going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is put on some reverb. And right now, this is kind of important, the reverb that you choose, because you'll probably want to experiment a little bit with different types of reverb. I tried to experiment with a lot of different types of reverb, and not everything was working the way I wanted to, or sounding the way I wanted to. And the only one that was really working kind of right out of the box, just without much tweaking around, was ROM. So this is the one I decided to go for and use. Kind of had the sound that I wanted and the quality that I wanted, but you know, feel free to try out different reverbs. It's just that for me, this is the one that worked really well. So now, what I have with this reverb on, and I just put the decay down to about 3.1, and this you can play around with if you're in a larger space. Maybe you want to put a higher decay, but for now we're going to put it at 3.1 and mixes all the way to 100. So let's hear it. Right, so it just sounds like an impact in a big space. So nothing too crazy there. So next thing that I did is I put on some transients, a transient shaper. So I wanted to have a bit more punch to the sound here. So this is what this sounds like. Without it. So there's a bit more punch at the beginning of the sound. Next, I added OTT. This is, in my mind, was just to balance out frequencies a bit more. And you can see I'm not doing very much because I brought the depth down to about 23%. So it's actually not doing too much. It's pretty light. And I brought down the gain a lot. Okay, next, this part is important because this is going to be shaping a lot of the sound that you want. So one of the common things about distant gunshots is a few things. One is that there's usually like a low shelf and a high shelf that's cutting out the lows and the highs. So right now I'm not cutting out any of the highs because I'm going to do that processing a little later, but I am cutting out some of the lows so that I lose some of that. And then another thing that's very common is you'll have some sort of peak somewhere between like 200 and like 2,000 or 4,000. At least in my in studying like other reference tracks and other reference sounds that I've been looking at, this is what I've noticed. So this is what I have here with this this sound here. So if I solo it, that's the sound I get. And now this could be like almost anywhere. So if I take this off, maybe I want it a different one. Maybe you'll want something like here. So it's a bit brighter. So maybe it's like a sound if there's mountains or something like that that's closer to you, or like the sound is reflecting off of something that's closer to you, you might want it a bit higher. And if you want it a bit lower, that's usually, it's like something's further away. So usually I like to keep it on the lower side. So like for me, I had chosen here between at 776. So usually between something like 300 and 1,000 is good. At least in my experience, that's what I've noticed. I've gotten good results with that. All right, next. So like I said, yeah, with this one, just play around with it, and yeah, you'll see how it affects the sound. Next, I wanted to have a little bit more transient to the sound. This is what entropy is doing here. I also brought down the wet to 36, so it's not doing very much. It's very light processing, but it's just adding a little bit more. All right, the last thing I have on here is limiter, and what this is doing is it's really squishing down and squashing all of the transients, and then also bringing out a lot of the tail of the sound, so that the tail is not super quiet, but is rather it's less dynamic. So the tail sounds like it's loud for a long period of time before it starts to decay. Right, so it just makes it feel like you're in a much bigger room, and that's what the limiter here is doing. So the limiter is really helping to bring out that tail and to make it last a lot longer, and to make it feel like it's in a space. Okay, so these are the processing things I did. Now, once I had that done, I could just come here and I can print stuff out like that. Now I have a tail here. What I like to do is try out different lengths of tails. So maybe I want something at 2 seconds. Right, it just depends on the space that you're designing for, and also you might want to try to randomize the sounds that you have in here. So right now I could like randomize. Like this can be a bit hit or miss, but when you randomize, you'll have different sounds, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing. You kind of have to play around with it until you have something you like. Sometimes I like to play low on my keyboard. You get a different sound. Maybe I'll increase the decay again. Right, so this one is kind of tonal, doesn't really work. So you have to make sure that it's really kind of it's really a noisy sample, so it sounds like a gunshot. Maybe I'll bring this down like this. Anyways, the point is to just keep on playing around until you have a sound that sounds a bit more noisy and fits with the style of reverb that you're going for. All right, the next step, or what I did, is to come inside of Weaponizer, and I wanted to put it in context with other sounds. So I imported my tail sound in here, so it's here now. So if I solo it, and what I did is I added even more EQ on here. So as you can see here, again, I did the same thing. I did a cut here at around 100. So I brought it down 3.6. And then another cut here from my highs at around 3,500. And I brought it down by 4 dB. And again, same thing here. I brought up another peak for, where is this? Around 416. And this is 3.6 dB that I'm bringing up here. And again, this just helps to sell I found it helps to sell the space a bit more. So if you don't have this, it just doesn't feel the same. So without the EQ, could work. And then with the EQ, it just cleans it up a lot more and just makes it feel like it's more distant. Yeah, so again, you can play around with the EQ, but don't skip over this step, because the EQ just makes a big difference in sculpting the sound to get the effect that you want. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm just gonna play this so you can hear the sound that I had. This is just the gunshot sound I created. Something like pretty simple, Nothing crazy. And then if I just mute it, oh yeah, I also had a body layer here. So if I mute these two and I just have the tail, like that, and then now with everything together. And you can see here, I am spacing out the different layers. So I have my onset first, the body, and then the tail is last here. Right, so that's how I created these tail sounds. That's how you can create your own using your own plugins and your own sample library of impact sounds and kick sounds and gun sounds that you might already have. If you don't have the ability to go out and record a gun and get those tail sounds that way, this is one other way that you could do it. All right, so that is everything for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found it useful and valuable. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I always do my best to answer them. And just a reminder to grab that free PDF, the 10 tips for creating AAA-worthy game sound effects. So if you want to become a better sound designer, increase your skills, it's a free little guide for you. Just link will be in the description. All right, so that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.